Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. What's new in VAPS Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, VPS Visual Production Scheduler, and VJS Visual Job Scheduler for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. My name is Martin Karlovic. I'm the CEO and one of the owners of NETRONIC Software from Germany, and I will guide you through this webinar today. As always with these webinars, you're on mute. So that we don't get any distraction from background noises, with the exception of the background noise that will happen here in my office. If you have a question, then feel free to use the chat pane to ask. While I'm on PowerPoint, I will see these pop-up notifications that you have a question, and then most likely I will answer it straight away. And if I'm doing demos, I might not see your question immediately. Then I ask you kindly to be patient until I'm done with my demo and return back here to PowerPoint, and then I will see your question as well, and then you will get an immediate and hopefully smart answer. So we again released new versions of all our 3 visual scheduling extensions for Business Central a bit ago. And the reason why the webinar is now and has not been closer to the release date is that because I visited actually Directions in North America last week, which was a partner conference for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central and Navision partners, and it was really good to meet colleagues, partners, and friends in person again. So, as you can see from title, this is a typical what is new webinar. So I won't give you an introduction into any of our products, and I will not do a deep dive on certain use cases, but this is just meant to be an update for those customers and partners who know us well, who know our products, and just want to see which little bits and pieces we added to the extensions with the release that we just did end of March. So don't expect me to get a full introduction to all the 3 products, and also don't expect me to do a deep dive. So we do deep dive webinars once or twice a month, and we started to do introductory webinars basically every day. So if you want to have an introduction into the VAPS or an introduction to VPS or an introduction to VJS, then please sign up for one of those webinars that now more or less run on a daily basis, and where we also have times that are better for people in Europe. We have times that are better for people in the United States. And we have times that are better for people in Asia Pacific. So there should be an introductory webinar available for you. But now let's talk about what is new. So let's talk about the incremental stuff that we built. And before we do so, just the information that we launched version 1.14 of VPS and VJS end of March, and that we launched version 1.9 of the VAPS end of March. So we are now, and I've said this a couple of times, we are in a continuous enhancement process. We are in a release cycle that we release a new version of our extensions every quarter. So Microsoft is doing 2 releases a year. We are doing 4 a year. So this means with purchasing the VAPS, the VPS, the VJS, or selling the VAPS, VPS, or VJS to your customers, you are definitively on the safe side of things when it comes to security of your investment. We continuously invest our products, we continuously enhance them, and with every release, we do some internal housekeeping, we provide bug fixes, we will provide new features and functions, and also in some cases we enhance the API of the extensions, because a year ago we made the extensions extensible. So VPS, VJS, and VAPS have an API, and you can build upon our extensions to get a more individualized user experience with them. Whenever we have a version ready, we send it again and again and again to Microsoft for App Source recertification. So whatever you get from us has been approved by Microsoft for App Source. And so whatever you get from us matches the quality standard that Microsoft has there. And as always, if you have ideas how we can do better, if you have ideas how I can do better, and if you have ideas how our products can do better, then please let me know. I will share my contact details with you after the webinar, and then please send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really curious what ideas you have. I'm curious to hear what you think, how we can make our products better, or how we as an organization can do better. So whatever idea you have, you can be assured that it gets heard, and most of the time we also act upon those ideas that we get. So I really encourage you to get into dialogue either with myself or with the colleague that you are working with. This really, we are not only curious about this, but we regard this as really important that you, based on the experience you get from your client or based on the feedback that you have working with our products, that you give us feedback and that you make an impact on our development roadmap. With this, let's have a look at what we actually released end of March, and the app source approval was on the 1st of April, so it was not April's joke or fool, but it was like a real release. With all the products, we actually used the first quarter of the year to do a lot of cleanups internally, to do a lot of housekeeping. So I decided to give the developer a lot of freedom with respect to kind of figuring out what can be improved internally, where can we do tweaks, where we had whatever deteriorated procedures, where we had procedures that were could have been done better. So we did a lot of internal work. With the VAPS and the VJS, we didn't release any new events or objects, so we kept the API stable. But with the VAPS, we actually provide a new event that is called on-provide additional dateline, so that you have the capability to show any additional dateline in the visual scheduler that is not bound to a specific object. And we had events there that kind of kick in when you schedule a PORL, a production order routing line. So when you schedule an operation or when you save the operation that you have scheduled. So we have some events that you can hook into the VPS before we schedule or after we schedule, before we save or after we save, so that you can hook in there and add some custom code, for example, after scheduling, so that you can check some criteria that are specific for you as a customer, or that are specific in your industry solution, and then react to it visually in the VPS. With the VAPS, we actually did a lot again this quarter. So we had a lot of efforts focused on the EMAT, the earliest material availability date, and we made an initial round of performance improvement so that the pure calculation of what we call the EMAT, the earliest material availability date, that the performance or that the calculation goes faster. And we had I think 25 to 30% performance increase, so things go faster when you calculate the EMAT, which is, I think, quite interesting for people who have a quite big amount of data, or if the amount of data is too big, we also recommend adding the EMAT calculation to your job queue. We also show additional information about the EMAT source on the allocation overview page, so that you get at one glance information on where the supply of the EMAT came from, of the component came from, and we give some additional log entries on the demand overview page, so that you also can get more information on why an allocation of a component failed or was removed. And in the settings, we kind of cleaned this up a bit so that we only have one switch to make EMAT a scheduling restriction. And when EMAT is calculated, it may take long, although we did some performance improvements, So then you see a progress window. We also added a new scheduling instrument in this release, and we try to add new scheduling instruments every release. We call this Titan Queues, and I will talk about this in my demo in a minute. We also have the capability to apply the show operations overlap capability to those operations that are on standby. And from now on, you can also make work centers part of alternate routing sets. So far, the alternate routing sets only included machine centers and the subcontracting work centers, but now we opened this up also to work centers, so that with this release, you can now also use the VAPS with 100% functionality without having a single machine center. So now the VAPS also supports those customers who solely work with work centers. With VPS and VJS, we added new warning visualizations in the table to indicate link violation. So if we remember the last webinar, we already started showing you warning symbols in the table part of the VPS to indicate a capacity overload. And now we transferred the same principle to the VJS and the VPS to indicate if you have link violations. So if you moved an operation or moved job planning line and have some issues with the links. And with the demo, I will show you this feature in the VJS. It will work the same in the VPS, and then we turn to the VAPS. And with this, actually, let's have a look at first VJS and then VAPS. And I recognize that I just finished a demo to a German client where I had the language in German. So let me quickly switch this to English, and I apologize for this. But this is how it goes when you work in different time zones with many customers at the same point of time. So let's start with the VJS. Let me call up the VJS and let me look at my projects only. And what we did is we added symbols to visualize link constraints and link conflict. So I'm opened the VJS in the resource view. We can switch also to the job view, and you see the structure, or you see that I have a couple of jobs loaded here. I think these 4 or 5 jobs. Some of them are open, one in plan, one is quoted. And I mean, let's go to this one. Let's actually go to this one. Let me expand this so that we see the complete structure of the project. So you see this job has quite an extensive structure with, let's look at this for a minute again. We have the job planning, job tasks, there are subtasks, and then under the job task, we have the job planning lines that say which resource we do need, how long, and when. And so you see actually here, we have a deep hierarchy of job with the sub-job tasks like technical specification, design approval, tooling, fixture design, manufacturing, field installation. And then those tasks have subtasks like the field. Let's go at the field installation. There is a step 1 and a step 2 or step 3. So this could be buildings or floors or whatever. And in there are the phases, and there we see which resources are needed. And so like it can be the case that you have something like this, and you see there are dependencies defined. And of course, there is also dependency from this job task or this job planning line to the previous one, which is an outsourced manufacturing. But there can be cases that you don't see the predecessor, and that you just think, okay, I need to move stuff. So I need to do this early. I need to start this here on this Monday. And so when I do so, or when I did so, you now actually see a couple of warning symbols appear. And let me do this, undo this again. So let me move this back here as it was before. You see there are no symbols here, and there is no symbol here. So let me move this back again. Then we get a symbol here, and we get a bunch of symbols here. And also, if I would have done this, and let me go to the resource view, if I would have done this in the resource view, you actually see the symbol here, and you see symbols here. So let's go back to the other view, to the job view, and let's try to understand what this means. So first of all, this symbol here indicates me, this triangle, hey, there is a conflict with the link. So by moving this, I created a violation with a link that I have defined. And I get this immediately here when this thing is up, so when the job planning line is visible. However, it could also be the case that this job planning line is not visible, but that I just open the VJS like this. And if I open the VJS like this, it tells me here, hey, somewhere in your schedule, look downwards, you have a conflict with your links. And then I see, okay, these jobs have no symbol, so they are not impacted, but this issue is in this job. And again, it is not on that line, but red arrow down, I need to look into the job, and then I expand the job, seeing all the job tasks, and I see, okay, the issue is in the field installation. And then I drill down and see, okay, the issue is in step 1, and I drill down and see, okay, it's in phase 1, and here I have the warning symbol, so here I have the issue, and then I can actually look into the predecessor, and then I see the link in red. And the same principle applies here in the resource view. It tells me I have an issue in the schedule with the links. The issue is in fields installation and is with this unassigned resource. And then I can follow the link. And what I can do now, of course, is I can say, okay, scheduled successors. Then the successors are pushed out, and you see those things are all gone now. And also here in the job view, everything has been fixed. All links, all warnings are eliminated. So let me do this again so that we get the principle. And let me now do this from the other perspective. For some reason, somebody schedules it like this. I get warnings here. And if I look at this in the job view, then I can immediately see where I need to drill down to where the issue is. And then I can just look at the previous step, and then from there say scheduled successors. And if I say scheduled successors, we move out all the successors, taking into account the defined links, and then all these notifications are gone. So we have the same in the VPS. You remember in the VPS, we gave you last time in this view a warning when there was a capacity overload. So now in the VJS, you see if there is an issue with links, and in the VPS now you see if there's an issue with links and if there's an issue with capacity utilization, and you see this immediately here in the table, and you also have some logic and some visualization that points you to either the resource or the job planning line where you have to look at to fix the issue that you ran into. So I think actually this is pretty cool. This makes visual scheduling more powerful. It shows you not only issues, but it gives you also information where to look at so that you can fix it. So this is something that is available with both the new VPS and the new VJS. One of the things you should know is that in VJS, you have to switch this on under the user settings, the user setup. There is under general a new switch, show warn signs for link conflicts. And if this is switched on, like you see in my case, then you have the behavior as we saw it before. Let me quickly go to the VPS. And I won't do the big demo here now because the behavior is pretty much the same. And you see, I have a lot of actually violations of my capacity here that we will figure out with VAPS in a second. But anyway, so you see, these are the warning symbols that tell me a capacity overload. And we have additionally the same warnings when we make link conflicts. Also here, under the setup, under scheduling, you have to say routing sequence violation check. You have to switch this on. and there is different behavior or different checking methodology depending on how you also take into account queue time and center head quantity. So these are things that we have in the product since quite a while, and depending on how this is set, the routing sequence violation check is like different or not. But and now here we see this is switched on, and let me close this. I would assume I have no issues here right now. There's no issues here, but if I would do something like this, then you see same principle. Now I have the violation here. Something is wrong with the routing that I have, and also here now I see I have issues with capacity and links, and then got a lot of signs, and then I can kind of start fixing those. So this is new. This is new in VPS, and this is new in VJS. So now let's actually look what is new in VAPS. And in VAPS, let's go to the simulations area. What is new in VAPS? As I said, a couple of changes to the EMAT allocation. So EMAT stands for earliest material availability date. So with the VAPS, we give you the capability to actually calculate an availability date for the components needed on a production order line. And the first thing that you will recognize, let me clear the data, when you calculate, you will see a little progress window coming up. It will be quite fast because I don't have that many data in here. But if you have a lot of data, you see this is here. Now it's complete already because not that many data. But if you have more data, then this will definitely be useful to give you a feedback that the calculation is still ongoing. So what is new here on this allocation overview page is we added this line which is called supply type. And this tells me what is the supply source to allocate the material to this material requirement. And here we did an allocation of item 90,001 to production order component, to a production order component line in production order 101062 from a reservation. Here it says mixed, so this means we could supply material, for example, both from stock and from a purchase order. So in case there is, and sometimes like the allocation is not from one source, so if there are multiple sources that were needed to supply a demand, then we say mixed, but it could also be like purchase order if it would be purchase order only, or it could be from a production order if this would be a sub-assembly. So from here you could see or get some more information, more indication what helped us to supply the respective production order component to the production order component demand. Then we have the demand list. The demand list shows you which item was demanded by which document, in which quantity, if there is a reservation, what if there is the allocation type, and so on and so forth, and also which what are the quantities that are still available. So interesting is the allocation type. Allocated is no issue at all, but from time to time we have things like allocation type where allocation failed. So allocation failed means we could not allocate this component to a production. So there was a demand for that component, and we could not supply this component to the demand in a given time frame. So basically, this tells me this material is not available in the indicated time frame, neither on inventory, nor because I produce it, nor because I purchase it. It's just not available. And because the allocation failed, we have a log entry here on this demand line, and we can look into this here and say, okay, allocation failed because we have insufficient supply to meet demand within the given range. So now I could change the range, make it bigger, and see if I have this material available at a later point of time. Likewise, we have a log entry if we have to remove an allocation. So we remove an allocation if we have material on hand, but on the same production order line, there is another component demand where we don't have the material available. And also now I can go into the log entry and see we unallocated the component for those production order line because this item was missing. So item 3000B was missing with a quantity of 10. So, and because we could not allocate item 3000B to that production or component line, we removed this allocation. So it basically tells me item 3000B is missing. So I think this is quite useful actually to understand more how we allocate material to production or component line and what happened. And this gives you enough or additional information. Then when setting up the VAPS on the VAPS setup, there is only one switch now where you say, okay, we want to consider email, and when we switch this on, then we use the earliest material availability date as a restriction for all automatic scheduling. So then this is a time restriction for every automatic scheduling that we do. Then let me run a new simulation. And we look at this by maybe by production order, color. And let me view the simulation. And now we have a new scheduling tool that complements another tool that we used to have before. So on a right mouse click on a machine center, you now can say either fill idle times or you can say tighten queue on this machine center. So both functions are meant to kind of increase the VIP on those machines, increase the throughput on those machines by bringing things closer together. So whereas the fill idle times function changes the sequence of the production orders, or can change the sequence of the production orders in this machine. So if I say fill idle times, then it could happen that, for example, if there wouldn't be a predecessor violation, that this thing would get moved here, right? Or let me take this one. Oh, this has a predecessor constraint. There is no predecessor constraint. So it could happen with the fill idle times that the sequence of those operations on a machine get changed. With the tighten operations functionality, what we do, tighten queue on this machine center, we say we try to bring in these things closer together without changing the sequence. So if we do this, we still have a blue production order, the green, the blue, the blue, the blue, the purple, the orange, the green, the orange, the orange, the black. We just try to see if we squeeze them a little bit together. And of course, as you saw, there is some room to squeeze because this one actually here, the predecessor finishes here on Friday at lunchtime. And maybe I can bring this a little bit forward. And if I bring this a little bit forward, I can bring this a little bit forward. And maybe now here I'm predecessor constrained, but anyway, so there could be a bit of time that I can win on these assembly station 4. So I can call it from here, tighten queue on this machine center. And now look, these both moved a little bit to the left. So I start this a little bit earlier, and hence I could start this a little bit earlier and just make better utilization of this particular machine center. So now let's look at the impact that this function can have on the entire schedule. And with this, I go to the progress view, and the progress view tells me which production orders currently are late or are endangered of running late. So now we see lot actually is green, so this is all in time. We see this orange guy here. This orange guy, remember, this is the time now line. So I had scheduled it. Today is the 17th of January. I had scheduled this for yesterday. There is no output or consumption booked on this, so this is not yet started according to my data, and it was planned to be started yesterday, so it's showing orange, so there's a danger that this is started too late. Then we have these two red guys here, so they are both scheduled to finish here on the morning of the 22nd, but they are due on the 21st, so they are late now. And now let's look what happens when I do the Titan machine queue function, not as I did it before, just on one machine, but I can also do it on the entire schedule. So I can say Titan queues, and then we try to kind of squeeze things together on every machine without changing the sequence on those machines. And if I do this now, we calculate a bit, and we actually find a few gaps in my schedule. And now you see everything was brought a little bit more to the left, not much, but with the effect that those two things, those two production orders that were late before, now finish in time. Let me undo this again, and let's see what's happened here. Everything is just pushed out a little bit to the right. However, with the Titan queue function, we find some subtle time, some small time fractions where we can accelerate things on a machine without changing the way of how these are put together one after the other on a machine. And with this, we make sure the two production orders that were in danger of running late before now are finishing in time. And I think this is also like a very, very powerful functionality. Then another thing that just eases, I think, the viewpoint is, you see when I scroll down, I see a lot of real estate is taken by the standby resource because we have a lot of production orders here stacked over each other. And you see here the text looks a little bit weird, and this is, I already applied the function here, show operations overlapped in one row or show operations stacked. So typically on the standby resource, we have the operations stacked so that we can see every operation. But if you don't go for an individual scheduling, an individual drag and drop scheduling of every operation, but if you want to go for some planning automatism, then this is just too much real estate for the standby resource. So then you can say, okay, I want to see those operations overlapped in one row so that you have one row for the standby resource. You can make this bigger at any time so that you can see the single production orders. But if you say, no, I don't need these many details, but the thing is, I want to schedule them all, automatically schedule them, and then see the full picture and don't give that much real estate to the standby resource, then this is actually also a pretty good feature that you have. And this is an overview of what was released recently for VAPS, VPS, and VJS. And with this, let me go back to my PowerPoint slides. There is definitely more that we are working on, and it will be less housekeeping and internal code cleanup this quarter, but we are looking at doing more functionalities, more features this time. We will do a multi-line table configuration for all products. So we give you the capability to make this text that you see here on the table, that you make this multi-line so that you get additional information and have multiple lines here if you like. We will work with having the EMAT calculations on routing line level via the routing link code. This is something that we started last quarter and we will continue this quarter. And this then includes also the capability to have an additional time constraint on the production order routing line. We will also add additional time constraint on production order line so that you, for example, can say, hey, add this to the schedule, but I don't want this to schedule before a certain date. So this will also make sure that you not push everything to the left of the schedule. But if you want to add something to the schedule, but work on this whatever next month or the month after, you just want to reserve the capacity, then you will be able to do this with this additional time constraint on production order line level. With the VAPS, we will continue performance improvements, and this is both with respect to EMAT, but also with respect of how long it takes to calculate a schedule with all the automatic scheduling functions that we have. There we already found some areas where we can improve, and we are already working on this. And then we also make this tabular part configurable like we have it in the VPS, so that you can change, or not only make this multi-line, but also change the text that we have. And we will give you capability to hide the non-working times as we have in the VPS. These are low-hanging fruits. And there we have some bigger topics that we will work behind the scenes, but I will talk about them in the webinar in 3 months from now. With the VPS, we will provide more warning symbols and visual alerts in the table, like the one we have now for the link violation and for the capacity violation. And for the VJS, we also have some performance things that we are already started to work on, both with respect to loading the data and with interacting with the data. We will provide a vertical end date line on the job end date, and we will give you the capability to actually have a project task of the type milestone, so that you not only have job planning line that have always a certain time span, but that you also have something like a milestone, so that you also can do your project planning more milestone oriented. And these are the things we are working on right now. If you have a question, then you can ask it now, or feel free to send me an email or to send me your question via LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really happy to discuss things with you, to discuss your questions, to hear your ideas, and to take your ideas into discussion with our developers, so that we can see if we can make your requirements part of our products. And with this, if you have no questions, then I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention, and see you soon. And then in a less what's new style webinar, but then more talking about one dedicated topic. And I think we have 2 great topics lined up for the next couple of weeks. One topic is that we talk about how to better integrate planning and scheduling. And in one webinar, I will actually provoke you guys a little bit and will make some, I would say, provocative ideas, and we'll share some provocative ideas around the capable to promise function that is useful for, or how to make it useful for capacity constrained make to order manufacturers. So this is something that we lined up for the next couple of weeks. I'm quite excited about this. I'm also quite excited about the progress we are making with our products and the extensions. And I see there is either a question or a remark. Is there the opportunity to connect it to MES? Absolutely, there is the opportunity to connect Business Central to an MES. And then when you have Business Central connected to an MES, then we will take the data from the MES and show it, for example, in the VPS as a progress bar, in the VAPS as a progress bar, or we can also do some more fancy stuff depending on how good your MES is and which kind of data your MES provides. But there is definitely the possibility like to integrate an MES with Business Central and then take this data and make this data available for scheduling purposes in VPS and VAPS. So Simone, thank you very much for the question. I hope I could answer this. If you have further question on this, or if you have a dedicated MES that you have in mind, and if you have a specific question on Business Central, one of our products, and with which MES to work best, then please send me an email, and we can have a more in-depth discussion then. So I see right now there is no further question. With this, again, thank you very much. Have a great Easter weekend. I'm in Germany. They forecasted some sun for Germany, which was rare in the last couple of months. So I definitely will enjoy some time off and some time outside, and hope you will do the same. And then see you after Easter in one of our next webinars. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.